One of the basic concepts in quantum physics can help you answer the question, why doesn't God stop bad things from happening? Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. So we exist in 4 dimensions, which is really interesting because most people think we exist in 3 dimensions, but it's actually 4. And I think Einstein may have been the first person to actually label it this way. But the idea is that we have length, width, height, and time. But Einstein said that our experience of time is interesting because we don't experience all of time. We just experience time as duration, as like this progression from where we are to wherever we are next. So he actually said that we exist in 3.5 dimensions. Okay, it's about to get a little nerdy, but stay with me. Each dimension includes all the various permutations of the dimension below it. Let's just talk about these 3 spatial dimensions that we exist in. So if you take just one of those, let's say length, it will be a line stretching infinitely out in one direction in another. To add a second dimension, let's call that width, that is going to take every potential line and add that together to be like a flat plane, right? That is going out infinitely in all directions. Now, if you take and add the other one, the height, let's call it, so you've got length and width and height, then that takes all of those planes that are just the 2 dimensions and it adds them all together to create the 3-dimensional space that we experience right now that is infinitely cubed. So when you add time, it takes all the different states of that 3-dimensional space and it includes them all in the time dimension. So you've got all the permutations and infinitely in the time dimension. So if you can imagine that time is all of the states of that 3 dimensions forever, all the different ones that will ever exist. So we don't experience that. We just experience each state as it progresses forward in time. Okay, so here's the mind-blowing piece. Quantum physics postulates that there are 10 different dimensions. So if we experience 3.5, right? Or let's just pretend it's 4 to make the math easier. There's 6 additional dimensions that add all the permutations of the dimensions below it, maybe. The other option is they are tiny curled up dimensions that are within the other dimensions, and that will make your brain explode if you try to understand what that is. But let's stick with the easy version. So let's just say that God occupies all of the 4 dimensions that we occupy and occupies them fully. That means that God experiences all of time as what one philosopher called an eternal now. That everything in time is now to God. And so when God acts within those 4 dimensions, it actually is not acting in duration, but in all of them at the same time, which means that you can't use terms like before or after with God. Terms like before or after don't make sense because God doesn't experience time as duration in this sort of philosophical framework. So when you think about that question, why doesn't God stop bad things from happening? It's very much related to time, right? It's like, why did God not act before this thing happened? But when you talk about God existing in all the dimensions, there is no before, there is no after with God. God is experiencing the eternal now. And if you want to get really crazy, super nerdy, if God exists in all the 10 dimensions, even if he just exists in one more would take basically all the possible timelines and include them in a bigger dimension, and God existing in that, well, we don't even have enough time on TikTok to really dig into that. Also, there's something really interesting to be said about multiple dimensions like this. The idea that if maybe you could, through some means, experience that 4th dimension fully, you would have access to concepts, ideas, things that have not yet happened, have access to things in the past. And some philosophers have said that when people get into deep states of meditation or all kinds of things like this, that there are moments in which they glimpse the 4th dimension fully. And it's not been me, but I love that idea. I love it so much. And yeah, I hope this helps.